Welcome to the Psychology World podcast with me, Connor Whiteley, psychology student and international best-selling psychology author of over 30 psychology books, bringing you the latest psychology news, fascinating psychology topics and more each week. If you want to learn more, then please check out connorwhiteley.net/books. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube video or follow on your favourite podcast app. And here's the show. Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 285 of the Psychology World podcast with me, Connor Whiteley. And today's episode is on what is it like to experience a major depressive episode. And it is Sunday, the 25th of August 2024 as I record this. So the reason why today's episode actually came about is that, as I've mentioned before on the podcast, at the time of recording, I'm going through quite a depressive moment, and I'm basically going through a major depressive episode at the moment. And that's definitely something that you hear about in the content part of today's episode, because originally I wanted to do some more eating disorder content for you, but because I've been so depressed this week, I've not had the energy, I've not had the mental capacity to actually write the blog post. So, and because on Friday, when I was thinking, right, I've actually got to do something for the podcast, I was thinking, right, I'm just going to record my week. I'm just going to be talking about depression, how I've been experiencing it, and some other stuff, just so you can benefit from knowing what a lived experience is like. Also, some of my personal triggers and what actually led to this, because that might be quite insightful and quite helpful. And it's just those sort of things though. So looking back, I think it's quite an interesting episode, and I think there are definitely some useful points that I make in it. And considering that this podcast episode comes out on the 2nd of September, 8 days away, I'm sure that some of you were wondering, well, why don't you just see how you are this week and then write a blog post and then re-record it? Well, normally I would flat out agree, and that's what I normally do. But I'm going up to the Midlands to see my best friend at the weekend, and I'm actually leaving on a Friday, which is when I tend to record the a podcast. I'm pretty sure that until I see my best friend and until I start seeing other people again, I am not actually going to get any better. I'm pretty sure I will just stay depressed and my energy will be quite loose, so I can't commit to that. So this was the next best option. Plus, it is a good episode. So as always, I always love to hear your thoughts and feelings on today's episode. So you can always email me, connorwhiteley@connorwhiteley.net. You can always leave a comment out of the show notes at connorwhiteley.net/podcast. And you can always tweet me on Twitter at sci-fi whiteley, or leave a comment on the Facebook post or LinkedIn post. I always love to hear from all of you, because it really helps make the podcast feel more like a conversation. And I just realised I didn't actually explain that because I don't really have another psychology news section to actually read from and comment on, then I'm actually going to skip it this week. And I am trying to think about my energy levels there, because I've still got to pack, I've still got to go back to Canterbury, and I do want some energy so I can concentrate whilst driving. Because that's something I genuinely have to think about at the moment though. So the longer I'm recording, the less energy I have in the long term. And today's episode has been sponsored by Abnormal Psychology, the causes and treatments of depression, anxiety, and more. So this is a brilliant book to sponsor today's episode, because this book really does dive into the biological, psychological, and the social causes of depression, anxiety, and we talk about some other quite interesting mental health conditions like schizophrenia. So if you want to understand and expand your knowledge about the causes of these various mental health conditions, then this is going to be a brilliant book for you because you're going to learn about the different causes, but you're also going to learn about the biological, psychological, and even the cultural treatments that exist for the oppression. And the cultural treatments are actually quite interesting because in different cultures, different treatments have actually been adapted to actually fit in that culture for the oppression. So it's very eye-opening, it's very insightful book that I flat out recommend. So that's Abnormal Psychology, Causes and Treatments of Depression, Anxiety and More. Available from all major ebook retailers, and you can get the paperback and the hardback version from Amazon, your local bookstore or local library if you request it. And you can get the audiobook narrated by artificial intelligence at selected audiobook retailers like Spotify, Kobo, Google Play and Barnes & Noble. And you can get it from selected library systems too, including Biblioteca, Baker & Taylor and Overdrive. So whilst buying books helps to support the creation and the editing of the podcast, my time is sponsored by my wonderful patrons. And if you wanted to become a patron of the show, now you can at patreon.com/The Psychology World Podcast. Or if you wanted to support the podcast on a one-off basis, now you can at buymeacoffee.com/Conor Wiley. So that's enough of this little introductory matter. So let's move on to the content part of today's episode. So we're moving on to the content part of today's episode. So I wanted to do a sort of a lot less formal podcast episode today, mainly because I'm sort of going through a bit of a depression episode, and that's something that I want to talk about today. Plus I've also got to talk about this for practical reasons, because I am not going to be able to write a blog post for all of you for the day that this podcast episode goes out. Because right now is the 23rd of August 2023, and normally I would write the podcast episode for next week and I would do a blog post. First, I'm going up to Solihull to see my best friend. That's actually quite an important thing. So I can't write a podcast episode, I can't even record it, so I'm actually going to have to record it quite early, which is where this comes in. So because of my mental health and my energy levels are all over the place, I thought, right, I don't want to disappoint any of you, so I want to produce a podcast episode anyway. And this still does contain a lot of useful insights into depression and the whole lived experience aspect of it. Of course, I do apologise for the audio quality and any little bits and pieces that you might hear that you don't normally get in podcast episodes, because I'm recording this on my phone. Now, I'm actually sitting on the floor looking at my sofa, because my hope is that because these are soft furnishings, what should happen is the sound waves won't echo and it won't be as bad. But I'm not recording this in my audio booth just for practical reasons, because one, that would require going home, two, that would require energy, and it basically elongates the process quite a bit. So this is what you're going to get. Why am I talking about experiencing depression? So the reason why I'm talking about this is because since Saturday, so this has been 7 days now, I've been having quite a major depressive episode, and I've never actually had this before. Sure, I've had 1 or 2 days of being depressed, and I mean quite crippling, and going through quite crippling depression, but I've never had it for 7 days. And yes, it's sort of gotten a little better, but I'm still quite depressed now though. The only reason why I can actually record this and sound relatively normal in terms of this is what I normally sound like, at least I hope so, It's just because I've just been texting my best friend because they wanted to know about what plant pots they had in their bedroom. And I was like, oh God, I'm going to have to go and look. So I did that, and we were talking, we were texting to and fro for a bit. And I was making fun of them for their mason jars out here. So that gave me quite a bit of energy. But I know that will seriously dip though. But I thought, right, now I feel good, I've got to do this. So the reason why I'm talking about this is one, because of the practical issue that I just spoke about. Two, as future clinical psychologists, or maybe even qualified psychologists, and people interested in lived experiences, it is really important that we do understand not only what academia says about a mental health condition, but we also hear about it from those with lived experience. Of course, I do not have a depression diagnosis. To be honest, I do have a scary feeling that I'm not actually going to get any better, I say in air quotes, over the next week. And because feeling depressed for 2 weeks, this is just off the top of my head, so don't quote me on this. That's actually all you need for a depression diagnosis. Of course, as long as you meet the other criteria too, though. So at the moment, I don't have a depression diagnosis, and I'm hoping that I won't ever have to get one. So I'm talking about this just so we can all understand lived experiences here. An overview of my week. So I already mentioned earlier that this all started on Saturday, but there's some larger that's going on here. So as you guys know, I experienced sexual violence back in April, and that has really messed with my mental health. That has been quite debilitating, and I've been doing tons of different bits to try and get better in that sense. But as I am still on a waiting list for specialist rape counselling, which is taking a toll on my mental health because I need this support, but I can't get it because it turns out there's a lot of people that get raped. So it takes a while for a place to open up for you, which is tragic. And I'm basically coping as best I can with my mental health getting worse as the months go by, especially my PTSD. Though, and I mean, I think I've had 2 days of depression since my SOT, 19 weeks ago, tomorrow at the time of recording. I've not had it for 7 days before. So what happened was that on Saturday, I started to feel quite depressed. I started to feel really down, and it was a struggle to get out of bed. Thankfully, I had a friend coming round at 2, just because we had already planned it, and I wanted to spend time with him because we get on really well. But the problem was that I couldn't get out of bed. It took me a long time to have a shower, not as much as the next day though, and it took me a while to do everything. So thankfully, I was ready for when he came round at 2, but I wanted to do stuff before then. I wanted to do some writing, I wanted to do some podcast work and other stuff, but that really didn't happen. So we had a really nice 4.5 hours. It was really nice talking. We spoke about Halo lore. We basically talked about a bunch of nerd stuff. Then we talked about relationships and other bits and pieces. Basically the stuff you normally talk with your friends about. Then he left, and then I was just like, oh, right, I'm actually quite sad now. I'm actually feeling ridiculously lonely and everything, though. And then it was a full-on night of just PTSD. I mean, if there was a sound, I would have a massive reaction. There was tons of intrusive thoughts about sexual violence. So that was not fun. On the Sunday, it was even worse, and because it was so dark and so bad, I can't actually go into all the details, but it was absolutely horrific. It took me 3 hours and 20 minutes just to have a shower. Now, I mean, like, because the interesting thing about depression is that because it's low mood, it really impacts your energy levels. So then what happens is that around 2 o'clock, I finally decided, right, I am going to have a shower. I'm going to move heaven and earth to have a shower. Well, the issue with that is that you need to get up from the sofa, then you need to go upstairs, then you need to get your clothes, you get your towel, go into the bathroom, have a shower, get changed, etc. So when you think about it, there are actually quite a few steps to anything that we do. And normally I could have a shower in like 20 minutes, so I can normally do that all in like 20 minutes. But on Sunday, it took me 3 hours, 20 minutes to have a shower. I mean, that was just like it took me like 15 minutes just to get up the stairs, but then I actually had to came back down, so I was depressed about that, and it was just like, it was ridiculous. Like, it wasn't until I actually got in the shower at 5 o'clock, and I was just like, there's no point in me actually having a shower because it's 5 o'clock, and to me that's pointless. But it was like, I've been trying to do this for like 3 hours, I've got to try. And then as the night went on, my mental health deteriorated. I broke my favourite mug. I smashed my favourite mug ever. Oh God, I mean, I was actually quite devastated because it's this half a litre mug, which is just amazing. I've had it since 2019, since I first came to university. So I broke it, and then I just called my best friend and we spoke for like an hour and a quarter. And then they were just like, right, you need to go home, you need to be around people, etc. So I got back to my parents at like half past midnight that night, because me and my friend had a really heartfelt conversation. We'd had a really detailed one. The next 2 days, it was just constant depression. I was in and out of it because my parents worked during the day, so I was alone. So again, quite depressed. I couldn't really do anything. I had no energy. And then when they were back, it was fine because I was around people, so we could talk and stuff. Some stuff happened, but I mean, like, that's just family. And then so I came back Wednesday because I saw my great aunt who lives like nearby. Then I came back. Now, bear in mind, when my mug had shattered that night, I actually hadn't cleaned it up because I was just like, my mental health was so bad, I didn't have the capacity to actually clean it up. So I walked in at Wednesday and I was just like, oh my God, I'm back here. I've got to clean the mug. I've got to do tons of stuff. It took me an hour and 40 minutes just to clean that mug up. And that did not make me feel great. So that all happened. And then yesterday, thankfully, I was able to do a few bits. But it was the energy levels that were really concerning me, because it was more of a thing about being in and out of depression and it basically not stopping, and me not being able to reliably do stuff. I managed to do, I don't know, let's say 4 hours of stuff. It really wasn't that. It was more like 2.5, because I tried to do some stuff. It was so unproductive. And considering I'm normally used to doing 7-hour days of different bits and pieces, that was quite shocking, and that was actually quite bad though. And then today, it's been more of the same. There has been a lot of other very traumatic things going on in the background, but again, just to keep this podcast easy to listen to, or at least nice to listen to, I'm not going to go into it. I just had to pause the podcast because I thought, because I heard a noise outside, I thought I was going to have a bad reaction, and then I felt a massive hit of depression almost hit though, so I've got to keep going with this, otherwise it's not going to get done. What triggered this depressive episode? With everything, there's always going to be triggers and different aspects of this which make your mental health worse. So, thankfully, the only highlight of being depressed for 7 days is that there are moments when you can actually think clearly. Oh, believe me, it happens extremely rarely, but they still happen. So the thing that really triggered my depression and the thing that keeps making me feel worse is one, of course, the sexual violence. 2, just being really lonely because I really don't have many friends. And my best friend, they went back to the Midlands to see their family and spend time with their friends. And basically everyone I know is out there doing really cool stuff. They're going away, they're having fun, they're seeing their other friends. And because of my PTSD, because of everything else, my issue is that I actually can't do the same. Then there's also been some relationship stuff though, because my best friend's been doing some relationship stuff. The LGBT plus society at my university, some of those conversations have been about past and current romantic relationships, and as someone who's been through sexual violence and also child abuse that was very homophobic, it's sort of like, I don't know if I can have that. I know logically I can, but there's going to be so much work to actually do that for. So that really didn't help me. And also PTSD is bad enough, but when it comes to going outside, that doesn't help. But also something I've been finding a lot lately when I've been going outside, like going shopping's a nightmare. Like I tend to forget a lot. I find it really hard to focus. So it's really tough going out. And also, if you're gonna go out properly, like you're gonna go somewhere, you do tend to need a friend just to make it more enjoyable, and you can do it as a shared experience. But because my only real friend is actually not here at the moment, that's really tough. What are the challenges of experiencing depression? So there are 4 main challenges which I'm really struggling with at the moment. So the first one is an inability to watch stuff, because it's bad enough when I'm in and out of being depressed, which is another major problem, because I can just be going along, then a wave of depression can just hit me. It can also be linked to triggers. For example, I can be doing stuff, then an intrusive thought comes out that's really bad, quite traumatic, then it knocks me for 6, and then I get depressed and I just lay on the stairs, on the sofa, or wherever I am for like half an hour to an hour. So that's bad enough. But when I'm doing stuff, I also have a massive problem because I can't watch stuff. Because I can't watch stuff on the TV or any streaming service because of sexual references and sex scenes, which never used to bother me whatsoever. But because that's how bad my mental health is at the moment, I can't watch any of that because it's too distressing, it's too triggering, which is annoying. So that was another reason why me and my best friend, we were on the phone for like 2.25 hours last night, was they were going through and compiling me a list of stuff which I might be able to watch. But as I said to them, the main problem with that is, and just know I'm extremely grateful that they did that, and I'm definitely going to start watching some of it at some point. But some of it is that, you can have this list, you can have stuff to do, but you don't have the energy to actually do it, or you don't have the executive function to do it, which is an issue. So the third one is loss of pleasure. So I've always known this is a depression symptom, but I've never had to experience it before. So you can be doing stuff which you normally flat out love. Like earlier today, I was flat out loving doing some business stuff, but I wasn't enjoying it. It was just like, wow, this is actually quite boring. And sure, I sort of picked the more mundane aspects, but I still enjoy it. I still don't mind doing it. It's still important to me, but I did not enjoy it. Normally I can do some reading, I can do a hobby, or I can do anything that I find really fun. No, not this week. I've just lost pleasure in most things, which is what I'm a bit concerned about this list that my friends put, was they really love all of these programs. I don't want to be the type of person who turns around and says, "Oh, thank you for doing this, but I really don't like this. I couldn't really care less about this." I'm pretty sure that's just the depression, but still, I don't want to do that, even though I think that might be the case. But I will honestly try and enjoy this stuff. But the main issue that I've been having is energy. So I know this is linked to low mood, but the energy is that I really only have so much energy to be able to do stuff in the day. And I like to think of this in terms of spoons theory. So I've done an autism podcast episode maybe 2 years ago on spoons. So the idea of this, and this is done by Christina someone, is that there's the idea that you only have so many spoons in terms of energy throughout the day, and every time you do something, you take away a spoon. So let's say you have like 10 spoons. So what happens is that if you get up, then you could lose a spoon. If you go to work, if you have a shower, then you lose another spoon. Then if you get the kids ready, take them to school and get to work, that's another spoon. Then you have a really hard day at work, you have lots of meetings, you work in a very high pressure job. Let's say that actually takes 5 spoons away from you. So that means you've only got 2 spoons left by the time you get home from work. But then let's say you've got to pick up the kids and then you've got to do dinner. Both of those activities takes away your 2 spoons. So after you've cooked dinner, you might not have even served it up yet. You're completely exhausted and you have no energy whatsoever. That's how you can think about energy levels in terms of spoons. So that's something that I found quite annoying yesterday, was that I was trying to do stuff, I wanted to do stuff, I had no energy after a while to do it whatsoever. What am I trying to do to feel better? I'm between a rock and a hard place. The reason why I'm sort of in a rock and a hard place is quite simply because what I need is my rate counselling to start. But that can't happen because I'm still on the waiting list. And my contact at this charity that I'm going to be seen by, she's on annual leave until the 27th of August. That's 5 days away at the very least. And in the meantime, I sort of keep suffering. Of course, it's not the charity's fault. This is just how life works. But she can't chase it and she can't say, right, this person needs help ASAP. Can we please try and fit them in? So that's what I really, really need. And that's the sort of the solution. As soon as I start processing my rape and everything, then everything will get better. But until then, I am trying to do 1 or 2 things. I'm calling my best friend every night. We're having quite long conversations about each other's day, how I'm doing, and it's nice because it's social connection when I normally wouldn't get any social connection, which is quite a depressing fact, but that's just my life at the moment. And then the only other thing which I'm really doing, because this week it's been quite difficult because I can't go back to my parents again because they're away, and the whole point is that I'm lonely, so I can't just go somewhere else to be lonely. That defeats the whole point. The only other thing I'm doing is that I'm seeing my private therapist this week and next week. Both of us have agreed. She's not a rape specialist, so it's a case of me just talking to her. To be honest, I'm educating her about sexual violence because I've done so much research in the past 19 weeks. And it's nice just having someone to talk to, but I know it's sort of just sticking plaster on a very crumbling wall at the moment. Oh, no, actually, the only other last thing that I'm doing though is that on next week I'm going up to see my best friend in the Midlands, so we can see each other. We can go to this city that I've always wanted to go to, more for a laugh than anything else, because it's got quite a reputation. And originally I wanted to go by myself, but my best friend was like, you just can't, I don't think you'll be able to cope. Of course, they said it in much more polite terms than this, but I was just like, you're right, and I'm really annoyed that I just can't go out without having a meltdown, without having an inability to make decisions and just getting overwhelmed, anxiety, PTSD, etc. So all fun. So I'm going up to see them. Their parents are going to be there, and I get on great with their parents. Their parents are lovely, and I might be able to meet their brother, which would be nice because I've been wanting to meet him for ages. So a lot's going on. I'm just trying to hang in there, and I don't know if this was a useful podcast episode, but I hope you got something out of it. And if you want to learn more, then please check out Abnormal Psychology, the causes and treatments for depression, anxiety and more, available in all the usual places. And if you know someone who would enjoy today's episode, then please share it with them. I'm always really grateful when you wonderful people help spread the word about the podcast. And if you want to become a patron of the show, then now you can at patreon.com/The Psychology World Podcast, or buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Connor Wiley. So have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening today. I hope you found it helpful. Please remember to like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow the podcast on your favourite podcast app. And if you wanted to learn more, then please check out the backlist of the podcast episodes or my books at conwiley.net. So have a great day, and I'll see you next time.